Hi, I'm Shinobi. Today we're going to go ahead and try one of the ultimate in comfort foods, chicken pot pie. I even went the extra mile and I put some cranberries on top of it. I hope you're really excited to try today's recipe. Thank you for coming to my kitchen. Yes, chicken pot pie. It's all about the chicken. Well, I got myself some chicken thighs here, and I am going to cut off the extra fat. I like a nice lean chicken in my chicken pot pie. Now, the interesting thing is, this is a great recipe if you have chicken leftovers. So you already have cooked chicken. Let's say you made a rotisserie chicken or something like that. You can pull off that chicken and you can throw that in here. I did not have that, so I went and bought some chicken thighs. Now I'm going to go ahead, as I said, get the fat off of there. I'm going to put a little bit of oil in here. And I'm going to cook up my chicken on my stove top. And that way I got some nice tender fresh chicken. Alright, let's go ahead and start getting some of our vegetables ready. While my chicken is cooking, let's go ahead and clean up 2 carrots. And we'll go ahead and get these cleaned up. And I have a half an onion. And this is going to be part of our interior mix. As we all know, chicken pot pie is a very interesting meal. It almost seems like leftovers in a pie. But this, oh my goodness, you are in for a treat because these leftovers are delicious. As I always like to do, I am going to clean up after myself. That makes the eating that much more better because I know I do not have a giant mess to clean up afterwards. So we are going to go ahead and, now that we have those cleaned up, chop down our carrots. And we want to chop them down, you know, to standard chopping sizes, I would almost say. Not too thick. We are going to go ahead and cook these down, so we don't want a giant carrot to try and cook down. Let's see, it looks like our chicken is ready to turn over. There we go. We're going to have some nice fresh chicken and our chicken pot pie. Yummy! Alright, let's go ahead and chop down the half of onion that we have left here. I'm always going to comment, my chopping skills are definitely getting better. Since I started making my cooking videos, I am by no means a culinary or chopping expert. I have not graduated to the holder of the Ginsu knife. So, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Eventually, I'm hoping that the accelerated video for the chopping just makes it look amazing. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and put our onions and our carrots together. And the reason being is they are both going to saute roughly at the same amount of time. When we saute them, we want the carrots to be soft. We want the onions to be translucent. So I will keep those together. And now I also have some of these little green onions. And I wanted to get these because these have a bigger presence. I was looking for pearl onions. And I did not have any luck in finding any pearl onions. So I decided to get these green onions because they are a different flavor to them. And they're going to have some really interesting flavor qualities that are going to add into the chicken pot pie. And, yeah, I guess I can kind of put in some of these other smaller, more of the chive-looking parts. That should be fine. We'll put those in, too. And then we are going to also chop up mushrooms. So I got these mushrooms that were already chopped, and they just seem like... I know some of the people that will be eating this are not big mushroom fans. And the interesting thing is mushrooms don't really seem to have a lot of flavor to them. So I think it's just the texture and the way that they cook. So it's how you cook them to whether people like mushrooms or not. Unless, of course, you have an allergy. Which, of course, if they have an allergy, you can just skip past this part. But I'm going to chop up these onions a little bit smaller, a little bit finer. And I'm going to have about 3/4 of a cup to a cup. And I will mix those in with my green onions, because those will be added together when I go ahead and have to saute those down. Alright, so we have our vegetables chopped. And our chicken, how is that coming along? It looks like our chicken is ready. But, you know, just to make this a little more interesting, we are going to set the chicken off to the side and let that cool. And now we are going to make our dough for our shell. So I have 2.5 cups of flour. I'm going to use a Cuisinart in this. I think if you've watched any of my other videos, I may have made the dough by hand instead of using the Cuisinart, but this is so much quicker and easier. I'm going to add a stick of butter, and I do have salted butter, so I am not going to add any salt to this. And I have about 1/3 cup of Crisco. I like using the Crisco because it really adds a different quality to the dough. This dough, I've worked with it before, is very pliable. It's very forgiving unless you pull on it without ripping right away and tearing right away. And so by doing this, I gotta add, my butter was frozen. So this dough is really, really cold. Now, you're gonna add in water, 7 to 10 teaspoons, but slowly add it in because we just want it to get moist enough to bind together. So it's really, you don't want to add too much water, but you want to make sure that you get enough water that your dough is binding, so it's able to be worked together, to stick together, you know, and this really, you might not use all 10 tablespoons of water, but between 7 to 10 tablespoons of water, get it in there so it starts to connect and bind. And this dough has turned out looking really good. Alright, let's get this over to our table so we can work it together now. Yeah, this is about the consistency that you want to have your dough. It's you know, moist and firm. It's very binded together very well. So we're just going to work it a little bit, not too much. The Cuisinart did a really great job of mixing this together, but I'm going to go ahead and fold it and roll it a couple of times. And now I am going to divide this into 3 even pieces, or roughly even pieces. This way, when I go ahead and I make down my shells for my chicken pot pie, I'm working with a limited amount of dough. I want to keep this dough cold as can be. So, but I also need this dough to rest. So I'm going to make the 3 even pieces. I'll wrap them up. I'll throw them in the fridge for about 30 minutes or so. But I want my dough pieces to stay cold because the butter in it is really that active agent. As this dough cooks, the dough, or the butter is going to steam. And it's going to make it rise. Now what I'm doing is I flatten them out into balls and I am rolling the edges to try and smooth out these edges. What this is going to do is when I pull it out of the fridge and I'm ready to work with it, this should help it keep its form so it rolls a lot smoother, and that way it doesn't break and rip and tear. So this should give us a smoother roll when we roll it out by doing these edges while we let it rest in the refrigerator. So as I said, I'm going to kind of wrap these up and let them rest in the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes before I start working with them, which should not be a problem at all because I do have some other stuff to go ahead and start getting ready. So now that the dough is mixed and ready, this should make life really simple. Because that gave me time to let my chicken cool. And you don't have to be perfect. As I said, the chicken, it could be a leftover chicken. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull apart the chicken. It cooked out really nice. And it is a very tender pieces of chicken. So cut, tear. As long as I get it broken down so it's easy to work with. That's really what I'm doing here. If you want to get technical and want to make little cubes or something like that, you're more than welcome to do with what you want. My happy is the end result. It's the flavor when everything gets mixed together. So if a cube makes it taste better for you, by all means, you go for it. Alright, so we got that separated. I got my skillet ready, and I got 2 tablespoons of butter in there. And we're going to start off with our carrots and our onions, and we're going to saute those down. As I kind of mentioned before, we want our carrots to be soft and our onions to be translucent to kind of get these flavors together. You also notice that I have 2 cups, well, you didn't notice it was 2 cups until I told you, but I have 2 cups of chicken stock that I've created. I like using my Better Than Bouillon stocks, so I got a chicken stock there that I went ahead and mixed up. Now I am going to add some fresh garlic to my onions and carrots. I have 2 cloves of garlic. And I love working with fresh garlic. It adds that pop, that zing to the food. So I have, and this is really a nice garlic press. So it's an amazing garlic press. So we got our 2 cloves of garlic in there. Cooking with our onions and carrots. And so we have those that have sauteed down so they are soft. Now we are going to go ahead and add our green onions and our mushrooms to the mix. And we are going to let that cook as well for a good amount of time because we want that to kind of render down also and be soft and cook it up a little bit. Alright, we have that cooked at about 5 minutes. Let's go ahead and add our chicken in. So our onions and our carrots are probably cooked about 5 minutes to get nice and soft. Then we have added our mushrooms and our green onions for about 5 minutes. Have put in our chicken, and now we're going to add in 1/4 cup of flour. Yes, I said flour. And we're gonna mix that flour in and try and get our chicken and our vegetables coated up really good. Let's add our 2 cups of chicken stock or chicken broth to this. So we have our vegetables that have cooked, our chicken, all that's coated in a flour, and I'm slowly adding in the chicken broth because I want it to kind of blend in. Now this is where it's going to get even more interesting. as I get that mixed, I am going to add a cup and a half of milk. I'm using whole milk. You can use the 2% milk. And I'm going to do the same thing as I did with the chicken broth. I am going to kind of mix it in slowly. And I am going to let this simmer down. And as it simmers down, I am going to add a bag of peas after about 15-20 minutes. So that way the sauce has gotten a chance to thicken up, and I have some frozen peas that I'm adding in here. It's probably about a cup and a half of peas. And I'm going to go ahead and let that cook down. Let me get my oven ready. I am going to preheat my oven for 375 degrees and get my dough out. So I grabbed one of my spears of dough, and I am going to work on getting that rolled down. As I said, see how I have the edges smooth? I kind of want to roll it out, and hopefully it's not going to break and partition off into a whole bunch of different little broken valleys and stuff like that. It's going to stay relatively together. And I'm going to roll this down really thin, really thin. And as I said, that's why I like this dough recipe. It is very easy to work with. It holds together really well. And I can roll it really thin, and it still holds together when I move it and pull it off. I am rolling it on parchment paper because that way it's easier to move around. I'm not adding a lot of flour to this dough, making it more gummy. So it's going to stay relatively pure. Now look at how I can handle this dough, and it's not tearing, it's not ripping. I don't, it's still got the moisture principles to it because I haven't added all this flour to it to make it even more pasty. The dough is just amazing to work with, how pliable, how forgiving it is as you handle it. So I have my chicken pot pie boat as I'm making. And I didn't even grease this. I didn't grease this bowl at all. I'm going to go ahead and just set it in there. And let's trim the edges of this. Now, I want to make sure that I'm leaving room to seal the top and the bottom of this pie together. So I'm not going to cut it too close. I'm going to leave, a good 1/2 inch or so to where I can seal it together. Yeah, that's looking like that's going to be a good pie shell. Now, I've seen a lot that don't do the bottom pie shell, and you gotta have the bottom pie shell of a chicken pot pie. That's just me. I mean, you can save yourself some time by not putting in the bottom, but that's what really makes the pie to me. So I've had my filling that has simmered down. I've let it cool, and we're gonna go ahead and fill up our chicken pot pie boat. Oh, this looks so good. And let's go ahead and put on the top of our chicken pot pie. Now let's get this spaced out just right. We want to make sure that we have enough to do the overhang. And we got enough to seal it, so I didn't overfill the pie. We got enough. Well, let's go ahead and trim off that excess. Yes, this can be a very tedious process putting this stuff together, but I'm going to tell you, if you are patient, I can almost guarantee you, because I'm not guiding your hand on putting all this together, I can almost guarantee you that this will be one of the best chicken pot pies that you have ever had. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. Alright, so we got the top mesh to that. Let me get a fork, and I'm going to go ahead and press together the pieces of dough to kind of seal that up. And see, now this is where the beauty is, because I can actually stretch the dough a little bit more and do a roll, because I noticed some of it was kind of wanting to leak out in places. So I pulled the dough and stretched it together and repressed it together, and I can go ahead and do another fork mesh. And once I get that complete, I'm going to go ahead, I don't think I got it in my video here, but I am going to poke little holes in the top to help it steam out. And now we have our pie ready to go in the oven. Alright, let's throw this in our oven. 375, we're going to hit it up for about 45 minutes. And after we get it out, oh, this turns out just beautiful. You can eat it right out of the boat, or do as I did, flip it out on a plate, throw some cranberries on it. I can, as I said, almost guarantee this will be the best chicken pot pie that you've ever had. Thank you, everybody. Please share, comment, subscribe. I appreciate you watching this. Thank you. Hi, I'm Shinobi. Today, we're gonna dive deep into chicken pot pie. 3 of my favorite best things.